My name's Hannah. I'm the co-founder and director of Diverse Educators, and we do lots of collaborative series. And this series is all about DEI metrics. One of the biggest questions we get around DEI work is, how do we measure the impact we're having? What tools do you recommend? So the idea of this three-part series was that we work out to do partners, and we've asked them to share the platforms, the resources they have, so you're more informed then about what they do. So really who we are, we want to celebrate everyone and everyone's identities in every classroom and every school. Seems like a pretty basic expectation, but we know it's not happening in a consistent way. That's our vision. We want to do that by connecting, collaborating and building community, and a community who celebrate the achievements and the things we're doing, but also amplifies diverse voices and diverse stories. And we do that through our values of acceptance, visibility, celebration, belonging and learning. This is our mantra: be where you're celebrated and not tolerated, speaking directly to the British values there, that we don't want anyone to feel tolerated. We want people to feel seen, valued, heard, etc. So some of you joined us for our first session back before half term, where we met the team from Adurio. Today we are joined by Nick, the founder and director of the GEC. She's going to talk you through everything they're doing. And then our next session in 2 weeks' time is with Flair to look at the third tool. So I'm going to hand over to Nick now and get her to introduce herself and to start sharing her deck with you to talk you through their fantastic platform.
I will stop letting people in. That's very exciting, and share my screen. So I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to go through different tabs. There we go. I can see everyone here. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to go through a little bit of why we do this, how we do this, and then I will show you what our platform does. I do have a new offer just that I can announce today for all you wonderful people, which I'm very excited about. I'll do that, and I'll allow time at the end for any questions that you have. So please feel free to chuck them into the chat. Wonderful Hannah has said that she's going to help go through them at the end. But I'm going to do a little bit of talking and explaining. So if you want to put your camera off and sit back in your chair and have a little bit of that drink, please go ahead. I know what it's like. This time is very precious. So also, please ask me anything. So when we go through this, if there's anything, not just about the platform, but around your roles in your schools, please just ask me. I'm really, really here to help. Okay, so I'm going to get started then, Hannah. So as Hannah said, I'm Nick. I am the co-founder of the Global Equality Collective. I'm just going to double check with my screen sharing before I kick off, because I want to make sure that all the lovely videos and things that I am going to show you really wake you up when, when I get going too. So the GEC. So what is the GEC? Well, basically, the GEC was set up by myself and someone called Kat Wildman. So my background is, I started as a secondary school teacher in Reading in Berkshire back in 2001. And after a short stint in marketing, I asked my English head of department if I could do some media, and not really realising what a wily old fox he was, I then set up a media department as an NQT. In NQT +1, I had 110 A-level students doing it. And I think a bit because of my background, you can hear my council estate twang. I was used to people saying no. So as a result of that, I now say yes to everything. So when the students who were studying film said, "Can we go to Hollywood, miss?" I said, yes. And then I went into the staff room and I said, "So how do we do a school trip to America?" And they went, "Oh, Nick, not again." So I was that sort of person. I won a teaching award back in 2005. I was nominated by the students, which was amazing, and by my colleagues, which was incredible. And then I became one of the first advanced skills teachers in the country who did digital media. I became an examiner because I didn't know how to set up a curriculum, so I became an examiner to work out how to do it. And I set up things like GCSEs, A-levels and BTECs. But more excitingly, in my role as an advanced skills teacher, I didn't feel that I wanted to be a head teacher, but I wanted a leadership role, and I still wanted to stay with the kids. So as an advanced skills teacher, I was then able to work with early years through to post-16 and special educational needs schools. And all the time I was doing this, I was doing training. So after the teaching award and the part as being an AST, I was always asked to do training and, explain how we used an Apple computer before the, iPad and iPhones came in, because I'm that old. And so I've got a really kind of bizarre history in education, that teaching and teacher training go very much hand in hand for me. So I did this role. Having a teaching award does open doors, and I was allowed to choose the schools I worked at. And actually, I went to the schools where I felt were a challenge for me professionally and personally. So one of the schools I taught at was a school where Millie Dowler had been. Those of you that recognise her name, she was a schoolgirl who was murdered on her way home. Part of my role there was to help the school heal and kind of understand as a school culture how we could work better together, but also kind of bring a new reputation around technology for it as well, which I really enjoyed. So I worked in 4 schools as an AST, but worked regionally and then nationally, doing training around inclusion, but also then around technology. And then in 2010, I had my own child who had needs, and I was told I couldn't be a senior leader if I couldn't work 5 days a week. And I won't swear because it's too early in the day on a Monday, but I wasn't very happy about this. I was a teacher and I didn't know what to do next. So 2 things happened. The first was I went to the TES other jobs to see what on earth a teacher could do if they weren't a teacher. And I ended up working for an educational charity called Achievement for All. Now, some of you may have heard of it. Education with Achievement for All was based on early years to post-16 special needs schools, which was great for me. And it was all about closing gaps for the least attaining 20% of students. So as a coach, I worked across the south of England, and I worked with dozens of schools where I would go in half a day a fortnight for 2 years to help with that change. And I wasn't Ofsted and I wasn't SIP from a local authority. So basically people didn't have to do what I told them or advise them. And that made it even more fun and more of a challenge for me. And what I realised when I was working with school leaders and teachers was the fact that when I was trying to help them with that child or that family, I was actually banging against privilege and bias and blind spots. I also realised that doing focus groups with teaching assistants or governors or teaching staff, actually not everyone still had a voice within that. And I felt that there was a technological way that we could improve what was happening. I also had to do an awful lot of inset days, and I got very used to going along to schools where there'd be their arms crossed at the back. I'd rather do my planning, thanks very much, hearing really drab initiatives that would disappear after 6 months. And again, just felt we had deserved something better. Alongside of this, because I keep saying yes to things, social media kicked in around 2010. And through saying yes, I was introduced to a lady who was interested in looking at media education. She was in the USA, and I said yes, and we decided we'd work together. And she was Dr. Julie M. Wood, who was a ex-Harvard director. We were going to write a newsletter about the use of technology in education. We ended up writing a book which Harvard published in 2014 that I wrote when my son was napping. And I realised not only did I still have a brain as a parent, but actually how much we can do using technology. So go then to 2017. There was a programme called No More Boys and Girls with a teacher called Graham Andre. It was BBC Two BAFTA nominated. Graham Andre is on Twitter. He's one of the nicest guys that's out there. And No More Boys and Girls was based on his experience as a teacher in the Isle of Wight. And it showcased what happened when he called the boys mate and the girls sweet pea and pink toilets and all that kind of thing. But interspersed with it were bits of research around gender equality in education. And one of them that really resonated with me was they took toddler girl, boy, and they swapped the clothes over. Really simple, just swap the clothes over. And then they filmed how people reacted to those children when they came into the room. And when they thought it was a girl, they would talk softly, they would not touch, and they would get dollies out and do stories. When they thought it was a boy, they would pick him up and put him on the bike. They would get Lego and robots. And it resonated very much with me because I had twin girl boys at this point. I've always been an overachiever. And that was my experience with my son and my daughter, that he was clever and she was pretty. And I felt I was seeing this in early years education, where I was being shown around and there's the boys' cars and there's the dressing up for the girls. And then my experience of being an A-level teacher and seeing how the drop-ups happened with subjects when it came to gender equality, and how teachers would inadvertently use their bias to offer solutions and advantages for students, it really something just clicked in me. Anyway, in that group was Kat. So Kat is the co-founder of the Global Equality Collective. In that group, there were other D&I leaders, and I was really excited because I thought they were going to sort it all out. They were the grown-ups. And actually, there were lots of facts, statistics, waiting for the DFE to sort it out. And actually, no one really knew what to do. I thought Kat was interesting. And so I normally say I collect the kids' teeth and interest in people. And so Kat seemed interested and sort of naughty at the back of the bus type person. So I said, do you want to have a chat? And we did. And it turned out she was digital product director for the Telegraph. And she was experiencing many of the same issues in corporations that I felt educational leaders were having. And we realised that the issues around the gender pay gap, which had just come in around that time, were similar to the attitudes we had around disadvantage in education. But there was no central place to go. There was no easy place to go. And actually, if you wanted a D&I leader to come in, it cost loads of money. And you weren't sure if it was QA'd or academically tested. And all these questions kind of came around. And Kat and I thought, well, why don't we have a look at it? Why don't we try and do something together? And so after that first chat, I set up a Twitter group, which is at GEC Collect, because I'm a massive geek. And we basically put it out there, who's interested in a cradle to retirement solution? And who wants to help us do it? And that was the start of the GEC. So as part of that work, Kat and I started to look at our different areas. So I looked at education and she looked at business and corporations. And then together we work on our GEC Raising Rebels, which are resources for parents, carers and guardians. We also took a step back and looked at diversity and inclusion. I'm so passionate about this, I've started to do a doctorate to look at this as well and look at how intersectionality impacts on what we do in the classrooms as well. I told you I was a geek. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion, there's a couple of things. The first thing is it's really hard and complicated. So what schools tend to do is they tend to look at maybe one or two aspects of the Equality Act 2010. And it's kind of too hard to look at it all together. So what we started to do was look at what the solutions could be based on what the problems were. And I call it the Kaplunk model. So what we've done is we've taken apart all the sort of straws and marbles, if you don't know what Kaplunk is, and then kind of pieced it together to kind of work out what those solutions could be. We also wanted to make it really easy, and that's where the technology comes in. It makes it easy. We can get everyone's view in a school very easily. We can get quantitative and quantitative data very, very quick. We can create a link to have hundreds of resources of CPD and have it there 24/7. But the other thing that technology can do, it can help with a psychologically safe space for people to feel really authentic. So like with Google, where we might ask Google what happens with the illness with our children, or what do I do about this problem, which we wouldn't say to friends and family. The technology can create a psychologically safe, anonymous space for our staff and students as well to help with diversity and inclusion. And so we wanted to bring the technology into it. The next thing, I don't think the Equality Act goes as far as it should. So with the GEC, we cover the 9 protected characteristics of the Equality Act, of course, but we also go further. So we bring in things like single parents' rights, we bring in neurodiversity, menopause, and we also bring in things like global citizenship, which brings in things like local and global communities, but also sustainability, climate change. So we help with those conversations as well. And as part of this, we started to create that collective. So as being a teacher, when I started a new subject, I became an examiner, I found a network, or I created one. That's what the collective is. So the Global Equality Collective, we've got over 400 subject matter experts when it comes to diversity and inclusion. These include grassroots groups like Diverse Ed, authors like Matt Pinkett, who wrote Boys Don't Try, for example, Academics like Professor Gina Rippon, who wrote The Gendered Brain. I've gone out and we've collected as many as we can, and that's grown all the time. We also have teachers, school leaders that are in the collective. So all of you on here, if you'd like to join the collective, you are more than welcome. And I say it's the group for the people without the sharp elbows. We're the people that believe that lived experience is really important, and understanding that benefits society. But we feel that D&I shouldn't be done at people or to them, that we all have our own experience, and actually we should all be experts. So the Global Equality Collective is about making everyone the experts when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And just to show, just thinking of one of our collective, for example, we've got Ruth Talbot in our collective, who is the founder of Single Parents' Rights. She lobbied Boris, I don't know if you remember him, Boris Johnson, who was one of the prime ministers we've had recently, to bring in single parent bubbles in lockdown as well. We've got an incredible advisory board, including lovely Hannah Wilson and people like Sean Delenti, who's globally known for his work in education and in businesses for LGBT+. And all of them are on our website as well, and we're incredibly grateful for their support. So what's our solution? Well, the GEC, as it stands, is an online community. We've got about 15,000 across social media platforms. We are a collective of subject matter experts that's growing on all the time. Some of them are on our website, but not all of them. And then the third bit is our GEC app. So this is a platform. So this didn't happen in a normal way. So we aren't just focused on one element of the Equality Act. We focus on all of them plus, as I've said as well. And the way that we've come about is a little bit differently. So we're very much come to this with a real socially driven purpose. Kat and I are both parents of 3 kids each. And what we wanted to do was create something that joined up businesses and education. So the GEC app is a platform based on our work. So Kat, being a product director, she helped organisations like Time Out magazine, The Sun and The Telegraph digitalise, and then my work in e-learning and training. The way that it's been funded is also quite interesting, which means it's really as cheap as we could possibly do it. So I'll say the cost now. So what you're about to see is £450 for the whole year for all staff in a state school. So that's lunchtime supervisors, governors, curriculum staff, everyone, and £900 for international schools and independent schools per year with a maximum of 3 years. We have those costs because that's normally how much a D&I consultant will charge for a day's work in those organisations. And so what I want to show you is what you get for all your school for the whole year of a membership. So the GEC app, we designed the platform to do a couple of different things. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of that as well, so you can see what happens with it. But I think you'll like the origins of it. We came up with the idea and we designed it, and we worked with the universities of Surrey, Kent and UCL. So we are also academically tested. Co-designing collectors are completely my thing. So we went to as many as we could, and we also did pilot studies. We got initial funding at a time where in 2018, where everything was focused on Me Too. So ironically, for 2 female founders, when we wanted to create an intersectional based platform, we couldn't because everyone would only give funding for things that were women only. So what we managed to do in March 2020, we had an angel investor that gave us our first amount of funding to build our first version, which was a focus on gender equality on the corporation side and disadvantage on the business, both Kat and mine's passions. You might remember March 2020 because that's when lockdown happened. So I was also headhunted to be on the DFE EdTech Demonstrator Programme, which was one of the government's more successful responses to COVID, and we helped 11,000 schools get online with remote learning. And at the same time, our devs team started to build our platform. They built it between March 2020 and September 2020. In the summer of 2020, George Floyd was murdered. And then following that in the autumn, Sarah Everard. And where our initial focus had been to launch in January 2021 with the elements that I've said, we realised that people were ready to talk about those global equality characteristics that they hadn't been before. So in January 2021, we then went back to the universities and rebuilt the whole of the GEC app. We then did a crowdfund last year from May. We raised £230,000 and we used that to build on and evolve the GEC app. So we are officially the world's first diversity and inclusion app for schools and businesses. Since we launched just under a year ago, we've had hundreds of schools come on board. And even though we're UK based, 10% of our schools are international schools, and we're working with ECIS, CAMS on our advisory board, the Council of International Schools, and we're even doing a pilot with the Association of International Schools in Africa. And one of the case studies is on our website on the case study page. So the GEC app, how does it work? Well, I'm going to play you a short video so I can catch my breath, and then I'm going to take you through how it could work for your organisation. This video is not only evidence of how many biscuits I ate in lockdown, but this is the video we did for our crowdfund. So Kat and I introduced what our idea is, the GEC app.
Welcome to the Global Equality Collective.
We're here to change things. For too long, it's felt like doing great things in diversity and inclusion was the sole preserve of those who could afford expensive consultancy or a head of D&I.
We didn't think this was right or fair, so we decided to change it.
We've spent 3 years researching and developing a digital framework covering every single aspect of diversity, equality and inclusion, and putting it into a beautiful, easy to use and affordable app that works for all types of organisations, from PLCs to tiny startups, in any sector or industry.
Our ultimate aim was to re-empower organisations using their own data with our groundbreaking framework.
We give organisations everything they need to break their own new ground in diversity, equality and inclusion. And it's working! They love it.
Oh, and the best part? We do exactly the same thing for schools, and it's subsidised by the profit-making business side. So schools only pay a teeny tiny admin fee.
Our solution needed to be low effort, high engagement and high impact.
Also, let's be honest, frameworks are boring.
We don't do boring.
Knowledge is power. We designed the GEC platform to turn the situation on its head.
Organisations and schools only see our framework when it contains their data, so it's always hyper-relevant to them. And we can literally show them exactly where they need to improve.
We created a playbook with over 60 modules covering exactly how to close each and every gap they find. Organisational leaders do a self-assessment. It takes less than an hour and it's tick box only. You answer yes or no and in progress to everything.
There's no long form answers, no portfolio of evidence and no uploading stuff.
And it's not judged by a human.
No bias, come right in.
And once a year for 30 minutes, your employees do their bit. It's split over sections with a handy time indicator, so they can pick off bits while they're waiting for their next Zoom.
It's fully mobile optimised, so they can do it on the bus.
And it's cloud-based, so they can do it anytime, anywhere with Wi-Fi. Today, our proven platform is affecting real change.
We have great businesses and school members that are finding gaps and closing them. Finally, we're moving the needle.
That's sex,
Race and ethnicity,
orientation,
religion,
disability,
gender identity,
parents, carers and single parents,
and socioeconomic status.
The only way we can move this needle on diversity, equality and inclusion is for us all to pull together.
Will you join us?
So I'm going to go through what we do, and this is GEC education. So we have elements which are the app, and we have elements that aren't as well. So our action, we bring together our collective with our GEC members, those who are using the GEC app. So at the moment, we've got the University of Surrey working with some of our teachers on actually the similarities when it comes to gender equality in schools, and they're creating a toolkit, which is really exciting. We're about to start doing some work to look at the neurodiversity of school leaders and how they work in teams together, which I'm really excited about, with an organisation in our collective called Cogn Assist, because I'm really keen that we start to think more about neurodiversity as part of inclusion. We have smashing stereotypes, which I'll come back to. The GEC app at the moment is based on staff. I think we need to get the ecosystem right for our students first. So we are based on the staff, but we are working on our student assessments at the moment. Goldsmiths have just given me the thumbs up on the questions, and we've worked with 45 of our schools, their students' parliaments and children's councils to help us with that work. And we're going to be carrying on that design with students and schools invited to work with our developers on that as well between now and Easter, which is very exciting. Okay, so the GEC app, that's what you're here for. So how does this work? We don't use AI, we don't use machine learning or any of that. We basically surface up the information that you put in as a school. I also don't believe in benchmarking schools against one another with DEI. I don't think we need tokenistic things to prove we're better than other schools. I think diversity and inclusion is very much about the work that we're doing with our cohorts at this time. So we don't offer that, and I'm proud that we don't, because I don't think it's something that we should do. So we offer you all the data, all the information and the education we feel that your leaders will need to break your own new ground when it comes to diversity, equity and inclusion. As I said, we've worked with 3 leading universities. We did 8 pilot studies. There's one framework. So one route is for our businesses and our charities and local authorities. And the other side is for education, which at this point is early years through to post 16. To date, we've actually beaten this now, so we're on about 160,000 students with our reach across 18 countries and hundreds of schools coming on. So we can help individual schools, but also trusts. One of our largest trusts is Flying High Trust, that we've got about 30 schools in, but we're also working with trusts like United Learning at the moment. And some of the trusts, they'll come on and have an umbrella kind of viewpoint on there. We can do that, where you can compare all your schools, but the trusted schools come on one at a time because that's how it suits them. We are working internationally, as I said. We've got a lot of British and international schools, American international schools, because we're UK focused, but we're also working with some schools, like we've got one in Colombia, that they're helping us with translation and working out what we need. The roadmap for the GEC is obviously to go global, so that is something that we will do, and I will be looking for schools to kind of help us with that, because that's how we do it with the GEC. Because we co-design our work and we've got relationships with all of our members, it means it works basically. So where we've evolved things with our summer dev work, we've added in groups. This helps a number of different organisations we work with, and therefore you. So we work with the Institute of School Business Leaders. We do their regional conferences, working alongside them, and they've also got a cohort. So if you are got Institute of School Business Leader members in your schools, we've got a 10% discount for the next 25 schools of our next cohort with them. The work that we've been doing with international schools means if you want to, you could separate your staff into host and international recruits if you wanted to do a deep dive of the data in that way. And then we've got other schools that are doing it, looking at maybe, you know, the lunchtime supervisors, the curriculum staff. So there's ways that we can help you really kind of filter your data as much as possible so you can understand how your teams feel. That's a humble brag of some of our logos. Okay, so how does it work? So I'm going to show you a quick 2-minute video, and then I'm going to show you what all the different sections are. Okay. Okay, so here's the GEC app. So one of the things I want to point out straight away is we designed this in a way to not only look amazing and a very non-government gateway, but it's been, as much as we did the university work, we've also worked with incredible designers when it comes to UX, when it comes to user experience too. The reason we've done this, not just so you've got something pretty to look at, which you do, but also we want you and your teams to stay in this space. We want them to stay in our library and learn and do that CPD. So we're really proud of what we do. We don't name shame, we don't call people out, we keep things anonymous as well. If you do this and you get one of our marks and you want to tag us in, we will shout it from the rooftops and we will tell everyone. But we also acknowledge that people don't always feel confident in where they are, that there will be uncomfortable conversations, that there will be blind spots. So as much as we like to celebrate, we want to also help you feel confident where you've got gaps and to close them as well. So all the data that you can see is RAG rated, so that's red, amber, green, because we love that in education. And the app is designed that it can be done literally out of the box. So I have schools that go through the website, pay online, and just get on with it and roll it out in their schools. We have other schools where they're GEC champions, so the main point of contact. They can come to our sessions. I run a weekly Ask Me Anything, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about something that we're about to add in. So it's completely how you want to use the app. It's flexible in every which way it possibly can be, because it's your app, so you do it in a way that suits you. So as we said, it's web-based. We call it an app because saying it to assessments, an action plan and a Netflix style training hub is a little bit wordy. So we call it the GEC app for short, but it's web-based. So most schools will look at their data on a desktop, but the staff, if they want to fill in their assessments on a mobile phone, they can do that as well. And you can access it on a mobile phone. The leadership side, there's a two-factor authenticator. We take security and safety really seriously. This is unhackable to the standards of Google. When you close your staff assessment, which I'll show you in a sec, even we can't put survey data and emails together. So you are safe in the knowledge that this is anonymous for your staff. What helps with that as well is that they can then feel that they can say how they feel, and you can capture it within our platform too. The design has so been thought through that even the buttons that you have to press are designed to look like bubble wrap, so you want to keep pressing it. So we've tried to think about every which angle that will really help people engage with what we do. We work with clinical psychologists on the questions as well. So you know that when your staff do that, every sentence, every way it's been put together is done in a way that makes your staff feel calm and feel that they can be really engaged with this. And I've even had head teachers say it was like their me time filling out our assessments, which I just, you know, I think that's a quote, isn't it? So how does it work? There's an initial self-assessment for a leadership team. Again, this has been designed for schools, so the self-assessment should take you a break time, 15-20 minutes if you do it by yourself. Yes, no, in progress, with that Kaplunk model that I said about before. That's your sections. Once you've done that, you get a RAG rated to see where you are. You can do that as an individual, or if you want to, you can do it as a team. So I say 15 to 20 minutes as an individual leader. You can do it just under an hour, so you can even grab a coffee as you go into the meeting. I say if you have got an English teacher in the room, it could take you 84 years as they go through the questions, and I can say that because I was an English teacher. So that's your self-assessment. You start with that. That needs to be done to see where you think you are at this point, and you get your membership mark. And schools put that on their emails and on their websites, and you're a GEC member. The next step is the staff assessment. Most schools do the staff assessment next, although you can share the library with them and then do the staff assessment afterwards. Your GEC app it's up to you. We've even got some schools that come in and they just do the assessments and don't use the library, and vice versa. So because of the price of it and because of what you get, you can really choose how you use this. But most schools, staff self-assessment, staff assessment, action plan, library. With the staff assessment, you might notice there's more sections. So there's 3 more sections than on a leadership one. The middle 3 circles that you see here are not required by all staff. So students, families and curriculum, not all your staff will have roles and responsibilities, so they don't need to answer them if they don't want to. The belief section, which is right in the middle, we've put in the modern sexism scale and anti-racist monitors. So just as your staff are feeling very comfortable filling this in, we start to ask questions about the attitudes and values. We know from our work and our research that the attitudes and values that people have in the school impact on the decisions and therefore everyone's experiences. So we put those into it as well. That takes a good half an hour, 30 to 40 minutes, I would say. Staff only need to do it once a year, and it is one of the most thorough assessments around diversity and inclusion that's out on the market at this point. We are not saying this is a 10-minute survey, this is a 5-minute, 3-minute, 2-second. This is a deep dive because this is what you need. But staff don't need to do it in one go. So what we normally suggest is, if you're going to give them time to do it, give them an hour to do it. It won't take them that long. Give them an hour, or give them 2 half-an-hour sessions, or give them 3 weeks and take a couple of meeting times out of it. They can come in and do sections over the course of that time. They don't need to do it in one hitting, and it saves amazingly, so everything will be there. They don't need a 2-factor authenticator, you'll be pleased to hear. They just get a magic link, so they can just go straight in and get on with it anywhere that they want to. Okay, so now you've done your self-assessment and your staff assessment, and this is a demo. So this isn't a real school. Obviously, I can't show you a real school, but this is what happens when you finish. If you are viewing this on a mobile phone, this might be a little bit small, but I will talk it through and I can kind of come back to any of this. All these steps are on our website in the education members area in our FAQ section as well. So there's loads of little videos and screenshots all on there too. So the way that it works, once you've got your results, we've been driven by the what next. You know, we're not just a survey. We've got surveys, but we're not just a survey. We want to be that one-stop shop. So we've got a nod to our action plan up at the top, just to remind you that the data leads to action. And then you start to see your results for the staff assessment. So if you're a trust, you can look at it school by school if you want to. We've got little orange flags you can see. These illustrate what you would need to do next if you're not sure. So we've got some organisations who don't know what to do. But we've also, which you can't see in this one, we've got green D&I cups. So where your staff saying you're doing great, we let you know that. So you can celebrate that, learn what and how that works, and make a bit of a fuss about it. We think there's amazing work going on in schools. We're not very good at patting ourselves on the back when it comes to D&I. So we want to tell you what a great job you're doing when your staff tell you. So for each section, for each question, you can now see what your staff have said. The inclusion belonging starts with I feel like I belong. So what we help you do is work out, okay, which staff has said it, who's saying it. We tell you why it's important. We bring qualitative and quantitative together with your staff comments, really quick and easy for you to see. You don't have time, we do it for you. And then what we do with a demographic breakdown is we start to break down that lived experience of your staff team so you can understand how their attitudes and values impact on that ecosystem of your school. So we surface up the top 3 positive and negative results for you, because we know you're busy. So we do that for you. You don't have to trawl through the data, we do that. But you can look through it all individually and you can cross-reference that 2 or 3 filters deep. Because we protect the anonymity, where there is a micro demographic with your staff, we won't show you what that is, so they can't be pinpointed, but we will show you the headline demographic. So if it's 6 people or less, that's what happens when you do research, when you're looking at anonymity in data. It needs to be 6 people or less, so that's what we've brought in. So you can see the data will kind of like run out and it will say less than 6 people did that, and that's to keep them safe. As a result of this, your staff know that they are safe and they can put in and give you really robust data for you to work on as a result of that. So that anonymity, that lack of benchmarking is something that we find schools really enjoy, because it helps staff trust this process, which is the most important thing. So you have your data. If you want to look at something like menopause, you can cross-reference sex and age. You can look at something particularly around a couple of them, like your parent carers, if you want to do a focus on flexible working, for example, on recruitment, attention of different age brackets. All of that information, those global equality characteristics are there. But that wasn't enough for us. So what we've then added in are recommendations on how to close those gaps. And these are being co-written with our collective. So they've now been QA'd in terms of diversity and inclusion, but also school leadership and improvement as well. So they're all in there for you. So you can see where you've got a gap, you can see who's saying it, you can see which groups, and now you get your resources in how you can close those gaps. And adding them to the action plan is literally a couple of buttons. We've got schools now showing this to external inspectorates like Ofsted, for example, as not only are we interested in D&I, we understand, we recognise what our celebrations, what our blind spots are, and this is how we are moving forward. And this rolls over year to year of your membership. Because it's online, you can share that with your leadership team. They can all add into this, and you can update it and customise it as you want. You can even add your own ones into our action plan as well. And it's as easy as that. That is now added to the plan, so you can see what you're doing. What I'll do is I'll go to the next action plan. So what you can see here, with the action plan, we've got 4 areas for D&I action. So we've got collaboration, that's the blue one, that's internal with our recommendations. So internal collaboration, but also external, which could be your feeder schools or suppliers and partners. We've got communication, absolutely key. So all my work, understanding how we communicate things in schools, from those inset day initiatives to where is that policy to how do I know what my rights are, all of that is very much key, and that's our pink area. The green is education or CPD, professional development, our training that we give our staff, and then yellow is practice and policy. So all our recommendations are put into those 4 areas, so you can really see where your focus is across those to help you with your development and improvement planning. And with this as well, what schools seem to really like is not only the clarity of showing what they're going to do next, but how they can add in the detail. They can add links to the work they're doing if they do need to share that with other people. They can put things on their website, and they can document the work that they are doing really easily too. And then the last bit, just because what else could we throw into this? This is our Netflix style GEC library. So this is growing all the time. I think we're on about 250 resources within this now. And there's 2 kind of key areas that are in our GEC library. So this can be shared with all your staff. As I said, everyone in your staff team can have access to this for the whole year. That's part of it. So we've got loads of videos with lived experience, and they're done in a way that it's to make people confident. So in some of them, they'll talk about their favourite crisps and cornflakes, and oh, by the way, I've got a disabled child at home, etc., etc. Or they're done like sitting next to someone on the sofa. So for your staff teams, it's a great way of them feeling really relaxed and gaining incredible insight from some of the world's best DEI leaders. We've then got our playbooks. So our GEC playbooks are e-learning modules, which take you from what is it? So like, what is neurodiversity? What are all the neurodivergent names and what does it mean? To then, how does this affect the education sector? So we've got our research in there, and then our collective come in with podcasts, reading lists, and loads of different ideas. We've also added in reflections. We've got things that you can get on and do straight away, activities. So all of that's there. And even if you've got lived experience, you will learn something from doing our playbooks as well. That's what they're designed to do. And we're adding to them all the time. The latest ones we've put in are ageism, the diversity and neurodiversity, and accessible technology are our newest ones in, but they cover across the board. And we're now putting in case studies from our schools to share that best practice of what everyone's doing within our membership as well. So here's some of the people we've got that are in our collective that have added to our lived experiences. And the Smashing Stereotypes is where we start to do more work with students. So as I've said, we just work with Goldsmiths, and we're working with our schools, and our aim is to bring out a version of the student assessments probably in January next year is what we're looking at the moment. I'm just doing my 3rd fundraise for that, which is very exciting. So the idea with the GEC is that it is one place to get all your D&I together, with the backdrop of people within the education sector working together to make this happen. And what I'd like to do is bring in Zahara as well. Zahara is one of our GEC champions, and what we want to do is now tell you about our newest offer that we would like to bring in as well. Is that all right, Zahara?
So what we're our school is a GEC champion school. I'm the GEC champion here, and I'm at a school in Beaconsfield, the Beaconsfield High School, so we started with the GEC survey last year, and all of our staff body completed it, and when I say all, as in we put it out to all staff, and the GEC app allowed us to track how many staff were completing it, how almost long they needed to complete it, which is quite effective for this year coming back in terms of the timings in terms of when we complete it, and then we went on to use the library to support our training and development, and as a school we also hosted a DEI, on the back of that, a DEI conference last year, which was on toxic masculinity, to support gender equity policies within schools. So I had over 15 schools attend, and the GEC supported that conference, and from that there was another like mini collective, I guess, I think of around 8 schools who signed up to the GEC app for their settings, and basically off the back of that, what we'd like to start is a network, a supportive network for GEC schools, schools using the GEC app to help the DEI designated champions within the school understand how to analyze and use the data that the GEC app provides, because, and I think this comes from conversations I had with Nick last year, where using the app and the data, I would go back to Nick and say, what could I do with this data, or it's telling me this but I'm not sure. And we realized there are probably lots of schools potentially in DEI champions who might be asking these questions, and having been a teacher, I know that your day-to-day gets away with you. So sometimes it's quite useful to have a network of people using the same software, who might have similar questions to you, and have experience with the app, and you can ask them that information. So it will be very much a data-driven network, as well as a safe space for GEC champions to talk about how the app is going, because being completely honest, as a case study myself, for the GEC app, it is quite as you'll all know, that DEI work is very sensitive. It can be it's great and it's really purposeful, but from my own personal experience, and Hannah knows this too, I found it quite jarring at times, quite difficult, and sometimes it's very lonely. And I know that teachers probably feel the same in respective roles. I think because DEI is quite new and quite personal as well. It shouldn't be new, but it is, like Nick was saying, post George Floyd, post Black Lives Matter. It's almost become a point of urgency for schools, and sometimes the students are ahead of what we are as teachers, and sometimes they don't know the sort of things we have to go through, the red tape that we have attached to the red tape that we have. And I'm also doing the which I love, there's a session tomorrow, the DEI leaders course with diverse ed as well. So having these networks is really useful. And I think if you are looking to use the data-driven app, DEI data, that the GEC, it is useful to have a network of people who are using the same tech, because again, it can be quite, that there is so much stuff out there. And if you are in a teaching position, if you are in senior leadership, and you've got so many other things that you have to do as part of your remit, it can be very useful to have this network, the GEC Champion network. So I think at this stage, it would be great if you are interested. Please do pop Nick an email, and she will then we will then email you about how the GEC Champion network will work for GEC schools. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, very much. We want to create a peer-to-peer network essentially to help the work that you're doing, and also that can help then work out where we need to evolve what we're doing next. So Hannah, have we had any questions?
I've had a few questions via DM to me, Nick. So one of the questions from the international colleagues, can I take your slides down now so we can see each other? Is there a list of GEC schools somewhere that people can then find, like local schools, regional schools, or schools in the same country as them?
Not at the moment, because as we said, we don't benchmark our schools. So I wouldn't do that without the school's permission, but that's something that we will be looking to, is creating a map of those schools. And obviously when we've got the GEC Champions network, that will be part of the work that we do. But if anyone's in a country,
so Latin America, we've got a cohort of our program in Latin America. We've got colleagues here from Colombia, and you mentioned you're working in Colombia, so they'd like to be connected if possible.
Absolutely, yeah. We're pretty much we're not in Australia yet, but we're pretty much on every other continent at the moment in one form or another.
Awesome. Middle East is the next question. Are you working in any schools in the Middle East?
Yeah.
And could you just repeat the cost? Some people missed the beginning. Could you just break down the cost again?
So at the moment, I think we're going to have a bit of a price change soon, but at the moment it's £450 per state school per year. So if you're in a trust, just times it and then for international schools, it's £900 per year for independent and international schools, and you can have a maximum of 3 years. If you can pay by invoice, or you can pay by Stripe, which is on our website, but Stripe only does for 1 year, and then we can invoice the rest. Some schools, as I say, just go straight into the website, sign up and just get started. You can do that as well. You don't need to talk to us if you don't want to, but we are always here and happy to help in any way we can.
Brilliant, thank you. So that's all the questions from the chat. If anyone would like to unmute and ask a question directly to Nick or Sahara, please do so. Or otherwise, please fire away in the chat. We've got a few more minutes left. Are there any questions from the room?
Oh, hi there. Could I ask a question, please?
Go for it, Sarah. Hello, nice to see you, love.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Nick, it's really nice to hear your presentation today. Your story is so dynamic. And I just wanted to ask you, here in Bahrain, we've got two of the characteristics under the UK Equality Acts that wouldn't be sort of recognised under Bahrain law. Yeah. So we have to be really careful about how we present information. Have you got sort of like, I don't know, a Middle Eastern version?
What we can do when it comes to the data, we have just this summer put in a functionality to exclude some of the demographics with data. So, for example, with France, we can't ask any. Germany, we can't ask around race and ethnicity. So I could create that for you. The area that we would have more of an issue is with the library, because we can't change the content with that at the moment, but it depends with the legislation in your country, which would be good to have a separate call on what is it a question around the demographic data, or if it's a question around the content we've got.
Yeah, okay, I'll send you an email then if that's okay.
Perfect, thank you, Sarah, because I know with other colleagues in Oman, they're not even allowed to speak at an event or go to an event if gender identity is mentioned, for example, as part of their law. So, and they get sacked and sent home. So it is
absolutely.
Really appreciate, Sarah, the context you're working in. Drop Nick an email and she can come back to you. We had to personalise that for your school in Bahrain. Anyone else want to throw any questions at Nick?
That must mean it was really comprehensive.
A really comprehensive presentation, Nick, where you anticipated all the questions that are going to be asked and you answered them as you went. I'll get Nick to send me a blurb and follow-up links and details and stuff to send out to you all with the recording anyway. And I hope to see you all for the third session in a few weeks' time. And then you've got the 3 videos to reflect on, to talk to your colleagues about, to work out which one is the best solution for your respective context or for your respective budget, because quite often it comes down to budget as well. So you might want to snap up the GEC offer whilst it's still quite affordable before the prices go up. So thank you so much, Nick and Sahara, for joining us. Lovely to see you all. I appreciate how busy you are, so thank you for finding the time. And I'll get the recording out to you all in the next few days, so go and enjoy your Mondays.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Hannah.